Welcome to the Business Excellence for Managers podcast, which is dedicated for all of you leaders and executives who would like to continuously improve your business performance. This podcast is sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, the online training company that cares about your development, your employees' development, and your business performance. You can find the courses under www.wave-bef.com. In today's episode, we're going to speak about the power of networking and how you can use it to achieve your career goals. I have the pleasure to introduce you to Matt Sitter, who lives in San Francisco, California, USA. He is the CEO of AFN, which stands for Advantage Foundry Network, which is a global CEO network dedicated to finding opportunity in change. In this role, Matt enables the collective and diverse wisdom of AFN's membership to help leaders deal with challenges, from dealing with their board to aligning their teams to driving their products into new markets. He eagerly embraces his vocation, building great relationships, teams, organizations, and networks. He is also the founder and principal of Kinetic Path, offering executive coaching, leadership development programs, and analysis of team effectiveness. Matt has developed multiple tools to assess communication within leadership teams, guide leader prioritization, and optimize their meetings. He has effectively advised leaders from various industries and companies, including technology, private equity, hedge funds, defense, real estate, healthcare, and more. Matt has been a student of optimizing performance through his experience as a senior leader at multiple organizations, including the McChrystal Group and other firms across healthcare, technology, and professional services industries. Matt's philosophy has been formed by working with top leaders in the industry, the military, and the public sector. I am thrilled to introduce you to this amazing guest, Matt. Hello, Matt, and welcome to the Business Excellence for Managers podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks, Juan.
Thanks for your time. To put it in a nutshell, could you please tell us your business journey and how did you get to where you are today and what is your passion?
Yeah, so I think all business journeys seems like they're all meandering paths. Mine is not an exception. Post-business school, I was very interested in the healthcare realm, particularly healthcare systems, and ended up going to an electronic medical records company because I felt like that was a great way to help things out, and managed a bunch of software developers there and the marketing for a data analysis product. Then I went to a cardiovascular diagnostics company and managed a disease management program. And then I went to a thyroid cancer diagnostics company and managed our reimbursement there. And all these things, it's very broad in terms of what I was doing. I could not have micromanaged the people that were reporting to me if I wanted to. These were, very technical professionals, whether they be software developers, nurses, doctors, dietitians, you name it. And so I had to lead through objectives for them. I had to help them understand what we were trying to get done, and still seemed to go pretty well. And that indicated to me that I really liked how teams and organizations operate. And that led to me going to an organization called the McChrystal Group, which was taking lessons from the United States Joint Special Operations Command and applying those in the private sector. I became an executive coach there. That really led me to a strong interest in how networks operate as well, network theory, network analysis. In my interest around that, I help out people who are thinking about how they could be doing their own jobs better in an executive coaching capacity. But I also run a CEO network that allows CEOs to be exposed to people that they would not ordinarily be exposed to, because that's one of the best ways that you can get at new and interesting ideas.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's where they can get really the best practice, because each CEO has their own experience, and normally the CEO does not have any peers within his own organization because he's already the top of the food chain, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very lonely spot in a lot of ways. And I think if you're only going based on your experience, you only get one shot at that. If you can hear where other people are going right and wrong, that actually adds to this database of knowledge that you've got on other decisions that you can make or how you might apply your resources differently.
Yeah, so true. The other thing which is interesting in the CEO role, as you don't go so much into micromanagement and into the details, usually at that level, you can really speak with another CEO that's doing a totally different business model and in a different sector, and they still can share best practices.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're responsible for everything. Even and when what we see is when our CEOs are talking to each other, they may not change what they're doing entirely on something, but if it's a 5 or 10 degree switch on what they're doing, they can get more effectiveness out of it. So just being exposed to these different ways that people are doing things is important.
Oh, amazing. From your perspective, what role does networking play for managers and senior leaders when it comes to their business success?
Networks matter a lot, no matter what level you're at. And I think it just starts getting more and more acute how important those are when you're at a more and more senior level. Those relationships that you've built over time are important. And ultimately, if you think about what you're doing as a manager or a leader, you have to work through people. You cannot get everything done yourself. And so the capability to work through people is really about how your network operates and how you're actually utilizing that to its best advantage. If someone who is very conscientious about your network, some statistics that are around this, 35% are more likely to receive top performance evaluations if they are thinking about their network pretty heavily. They're 43% more likely to receive a promotion and 42% more likely to be retained. So there's real business outcomes, or the real individual outcomes for folks who think a lot about what they're doing with their network and how they're conscientiously managing it.
Yeah. And especially that no matter what business you're in, it's all people business, because at the end of the day, you have to deal with people and you got to have them on your side, and you cannot just act as a lonely ranger in your office. If I look back maybe 10, 20 years, a lot of those high-level executives, they were isolated in their office and nobody would really know what is happening or what are they doing, and they were not very visible. And nowadays I see them that they really try to be more there for the employees, that they are walking around sometimes the offices. They try to not to have those walls, but more like a glass type of office where people can see through. So it just feels a bit more transparent and that they're more accessible than before.
Yeah. Well, the speed and visibility of communications has increased a lot. And the pandemic sped this up a ton, because everyone all of a sudden had to be using video teleconferencing. And so that increased this expectation that, hey, I want to be able to see and hear from these folks, because even if we're not co-located, I know I can communicate with them.
Yeah. I think the transparency has become so good that people even know who's the dog of the CEO because they see him sometimes in the background in the video when he's, for example, doing the home office calls.
Right. Yeah. You get to see into everyone's personal lives a little bit further than you could prior. And that's helpful in a lot of ways to be able to really understand who we are as humans.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I remember my previous job, I've seen all my colleagues and all of the management, they were always running around in neckties and suits. And in the pandemic, people were using heavily the video conferencing for the first time, that people were seeing their colleagues without neckties, with just regular shirts. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's how you look when you don't have a suit on.
Right.
So for managers who already have, let's say, a good network in place, what is your recommendation for them to nurture the network that they already have?
Oftentimes when we're building our networks, we've actually built them for what our last 10 years look like. And that's natural, because those are the experiences that we have. I would say thinking in a forward-looking manner on what's the network that you're going to need in terms of the objectives that you've got. There's a sociological construct called Dunbar's number, and the number is 150. It's not really important what that number actually is, but it's the number of relationships that you can actively manage. And this goes back to, when we were in tribes, there was only so many people that you were going to be exposed to. And so that 150 over the course of your life is going to change, right? But that 150, if you could think about your networking capability, your relationship managed capability as being constrained and a scarce resource, that's important. So understanding who are those people who are important into your network now, who are those people who you may develop relationships further. We have an illusion right now with things like LinkedIn or Facebook. Like, hey, I have 20,000 friends. Well, you may have it within that platform and you may be able to reach out to those folks, but your ability to actually actively manage relationships is constrained. So think about that as a deliberate decision that you get to make on who are those relationships you want to be investing in more.
Wow, that's very powerful. especially that everyone goes through a different phase in their life depending where they are at that moment. And then automatically the network of people who you are in contact with will change, because maybe with people who you are in contact with at the beginning of your career are not going to be maybe in contact with you when you are today a senior manager or a CEO.
That's right.
So you might maybe still be in contact with them, but not as frequently as before. Yeah. So that really, it
right.
shifts a little bit, the dynamic. Yeah. But as you said, everyone has a specific availability and time to actually be in contact with those people. And for me, sometimes it's overwhelming because as I know so many people that I say, well, I feel that I'm just not paying too much attention to those people. But if I would be paying attention to all of them, I would have no more time for anything anymore.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not possible. It's
Exactly.
not possible. There's two things that I like to think about relative to how we consider networks as well. And those are the concepts of ideation and reach. So when we look at the people who come up with the best ideas within an organization, they are people who are connected to people who are unconnected to each other, right? So they end up being this clearinghouse for ideas and information, and they can integrate those things together. And so as you're thinking about your network, if it's really closed, if you only know people who are in your group and they all know each other really well, you're not going to have new information that's injected in. And so being able to reach outside of that group is important, and having, different pockets of people that you talk to. And when you think about your reach, how many people can you actually get information to? It's not necessarily about how many people you know. That could be a really large number, but it's knowing people who know a lot of people that's important. So that allows you to more efficiently spread information if you know people who know discrete groups of people. So this idea like, hey, how can I actually increase the breadth and diversity of my network, because that's going to allow me to get the best ideas and actually touch more people.
Fantastic. Wow. And if you, on top of it, add more color to it and say that my network even consists of people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, so they all have then just different ideas that can come up for the same topic that you might be speaking about. And this way you can also start observing all those different points of views and understanding a little bit more what could be the next logical step to make.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. And from your definition of a person who is an outstanding networker, what are things that you would look at? What are some characteristics?
I think the word networker can get a bad rap. Just like if you are specifically out there trying to extract value from people. All right. So I would put that in the bad networking point of view. The person who's good at a network is actually thinking about like, hey, all right, how am I really connecting with someone, and how are we providing mutual value on what we both can gain from a relationship? One of the strongest things that I think that someone, if they're thinking about, hey, I want to improve my network and I'm going to join a network organization, I'm going to join an industry organization because that's going to allow me to meet a lot of people. The people who are best within that are actually the people who try and get closer to the center of the network. So if there's some sort of event that's going on for this organization that you've joined, that's a networking organization, volunteer to help put on events or things like that. That gives you actually an excuse to get to know a lot of people within that particular network. And then you can do a little bit more picking and choosing on who you want to be able to connect with. If you go to a cocktail party, you may end up talking to only 4 people over the course of the night. May not be the right 4 people. And so if you're actually closer to the center of the network, you know who those 4 people might want to be. And actually you have a great excuse to reach out to a ton of different people then as well.
Wow, interesting. And can it happen that some people feel a bit intimidated if they're going to meet another person who might know a little bit more on a specific topic, and people, they have to like go over that, that barrier. You know, they say, oh, that this person might know more than I do. But actually that's a good thing, because that's the only way you can grow. That's the only way you can expand your thinking of specific topics.
Right. Well, one of my fundamental beliefs is there's no such thing as the smartest person in the room, right? We all have a degree of experience and expertise in certain areas that someone else doesn't have. Being intellectually curious about that other person is really, really important. Our favorite topics, this is you, me, and the rest of humanity, is ourselves. If you're asking a lot of questions to that person, if they're getting the opportunity to share that expertise, that's a tremendous value to them because they're talking about their favorite subject. Yeah. You know, someone who knows more than you about a particular topic, great. That means that you get to ask them all about themselves.
Yeah, that's good. I haven't heard it in that sense, the way how you explained it, but it definitely makes sense. For those who can see me, I'm nodding the whole time. And is there someone famous that maybe a lot of the listeners might know who you would consider as a person who does good networking?
I think you see these people in a lot of different ways. Actually, someone who's pretty interesting right now is you look at Ryan Reynolds. Okay, so Ryan Reynolds, he just bought a Formula One team. He's got a soccer team, but he's out there in a variety of different capacities on a consistent basis. He has used his acting career to help launch him into other areas. So this diversity of interest has helped pay off for him and for him to be able to connect to a lot of people. And I'd say that also when you think about this football team, it's like a third tier league that he bought in the UK. His ability to actually connect with the fans there was a big deal, right? And I think that he's actually looking for that on a consistent basis. And so that idea of how you can connect with people is really important.
That's a really good example. Yeah, because if I'm just thinking back, if he would be still in his same network that he had 10 years ago, he would never be where he is today, because
absolutely
he's just expanding. Yeah, the type of people he's with, the type of people who have knowledge in different areas, and that's what made him also be able to go into so many different topics and to so many businesses that he has.
Well, and I think about it from the perspective of someone who's looking for a new job. If they're just waiting for recruiters to call them, they're only getting a sense of what recruiters are calling them about. If you've got a broad network, you can actually hear about all sorts of opportunities that you never would have heard of if you're only waiting for that recruiter's call. If you're actually out there talking to a bunch of people, you're understanding a much greater breadth of opportunity.
Yeah. You're the CEO of a company called AFN, the Advantage Foundry Network. And what do you offer? What does the company do?
Yeah, that's the CEO network that I mentioned earlier. So there are a few different CEO networks that exist out there in the world. One of the things that I really wanted to focus on accomplishing was how could we expose people to greater diversity and depth than they would otherwise, and how could we have a strong ROI on time. Time is one of your most precious resources, along with those relationships that you can manage. And so how you're using your time is really important. With the pandemic happening and everyone being on Zoom, I felt like we could actually get global groups of CEOs together so they could broaden what they were learning from one another. And so within AFN, we do a few key things. We get cohorts of CEOs together once per month to talk about a specific topic. Those are 2 hours long. We do one-on-one coaching with them, working on whatever they want to work on. Sometimes it's, hey, how do I improve my network? Sometimes it's, I want to communicate better. Sometimes I need to think about my strategy in a different way. We offer events on a frequent basis for access to subject matter experts. And then we have something we call the CEO Concierge Program, which is, hey, I want to learn more about this topic. What should I do? And we go into our network, look at who we know around that and what we know around it, and return to them within 48 hours. Here's what we know about the topic, and here's 2 other members or members of our extended network that would be valuable for you to talk to on this particular topic.
Wow, that's really very comprehensive and complete. So to be a member of that, is there a specific, let's say, like a requirements that one has to fulfill? Is there a specific, let's say, membership fee in order to be part of it?
There is a membership fee. Yeah, it's $8,500 a year. What's important is that they're in charge of a substantial portion of a business in some way, shape, or form, right? So we have country CEOs that are in, so they might not be CEO of the entire corporation, or we've had people who lead their venture studio within their company as well. A couple of qualities that I think is really important for people, getting back to that idea of, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably not a great fit because you're there to be able to learn from other people and be able to give your knowledge as well. And we also work with companies that are looking to scale. So, if you are going to be a mom and pop shop and you're going to be in, really small business and you're going to be that small business forever, probably not as good a fit for you.
Yeah. Okay. And for somebody who feels that is an interesting topic, from your experience, how much time do they usually need to put aside to be part of that group? Would it be a couple of hours a month or?
Yeah, so for us, basically we're looking for 4 hours a month. Mm-hmm. We think that that's a good return on time invested around it. Other organizations out there, they may do a day a month where you actually are doing an offsite with all the people within your group and things like that. We wanted to really move towards, hey, how can we actually help you get the most out of the least amount of time?
Yeah, perfect. I think one of the things that it's really interesting when you have such a group dynamic, that if a specific CEO is giving, let's say, an agenda point and they all discuss it, then for the next meeting, sometimes one feels like, I'm a little bit now accountable for that topic. Now maybe I need to share with everybody what came out of it, from their feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what helps gain some personal interest in one another as well. And, as we think about what different people need, there's actually a couple of assessments that I look at as well. One is StrengthsFinder. The other is, we call it the Leadership Network Diagnostic. It's through a company called networkleader.com. And that really gives you a sense on like, hey, how is your network operating right now? And then StrengthsFinder says, hey, what am I good at? And it's great to be good at these things. I want to bolster my strengths, and I'll partner with people to help me with those other things.
Wow, amazing. That really is a booster for network, definitely. And what are the CEOs worldwide sharing with you today regarding their challenges that they have?
Some of the things that you would 100% expect. So this idea of, all right, should we be in person or should we be remote? Yeah. And the answer is yes to all of it, right? Sometimes it's going to be best for you to be remote. Sometimes it's going to be best for you to be in person. There's always concerns about like, hey, how am I thinking about capital raise around what we do? The employment market is changing quite a bit. So if you think about talent that's out there, we can actually access a much greater global breadth of talent than we ever could before. What are the relationships that you need to have with people around it? And then communication is always important. And I think communication is always at the base of what we're thinking about, how we're working with and through other people. How do we communicate in the best way what's going on with our strategy, what we're doing next? And in companies where we're not just made of full-time employees anymore, we've got contractors, we've got short projects that we're doing with people. How do we make sure that those people can feel like a part of the company to the point where they are actually invested in what we do as well and engaged, so that we're getting the full capability that they have to offer?
Yeah, that sounds really good. A lot of the listeners, as they are usually in the topic of business excellence, and in this podcast, they're all leaders and managers, they tend to be very actionable kind of people. So,
sure.
Pertaining to the topic networking, could you please share with us a hands-on and actionable tool or technique that managers could apply after listening to this podcast episode?
Yeah, so I've got a few ideas here. So I think doing something like the Leadership Network Diagnostic is really important. And if they're interested in something like that, obviously we're willing to help them out around that. When you're thinking about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, if you are talking to someone, the question that I tell people to ask themselves is, can I identify the values of the person that I'm talking to? If I can actually identify what is important to that other person, it changes the conversation. It changes how I think about them a lot, and allows me to phrase or voice things in a way that matter to that person more as well. So you're really kind of exercising that empathy muscle quite a bit there. I think that you should, on that same topic, you ought to be thinking about, hey, what are they trying to get done? If I can understand what they're trying to get done, that actually can help me in terms of how I'm thinking about communicating with them. And then the last thing I would say is be a student of communication. Probably 90% of your job, if you're a manager, is communication. Doing it well is really, really important. And cleaning up the mess when you do it poorly takes a lot of time. So if you're thinking about, hey, how can I write a better email? How can I present better? How can I actually have better conversations? If I'm doing a one-on-one meeting, which is the single most expensive use of time, how can I make sure that that's worth it? So be a student of communication. Think about how you can be doing each one of those types of communications better.
Yeah, fantastic. I think one of the things that you just mentioned that just struck out a little bit from my point of view is the topic emotional intelligence. I think if they work on that a bit more and they can just put themselves in the shoes of the other person who's with them, they can adjust and modify the way they're doing the communication accordingly, because everybody's different and you cannot use the same way of communication with, let's say, if you're traveling to a different country in a different branch of your organization and you're going to communicate in a specific way with the people in Asia than with the people in South America or the ones in Europe. You really have to have that empathy and be aware on how you're going to transport that communication. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we communicate to be understood.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about, hey, it's strictly what I'm putting out there, what you put out is not the same as what someone's receiving. So really being conscientious about the message that someone's receiving and what you want to have happen as a result of that message. What's the objective that you're trying to reach?
Exactly. Yeah. And especially as everybody had a different background, you cannot expect that everybody's going to get the same type of message that is going to come to the way how they understand the way you are communicating. And if I'm, for example, saying to a group of people, please paint a nice collage with apples. Yeah, some people will draw it with red apples. Other people will do it with green apples. Yeah?
Right.
And then I'll be saying, yeah, why? I was actually expecting you guys to do a red apple collage. And why did the others do the green one? And it's because I did not specify in my communication. In my, I would say, region where I grew up, it was always the red apples.
Right.
So I had that somehow present in my head. But doing my communication, I thought that everybody will understand that they're also going to do red apples. Yeah, so... That's
right. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And I think that even when you look at, there's organizations that I work with, large multinational organizations, where they may have the exact same acronym in two different parts of the organization that means entirely different things.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, being aware of, hey, what's the level of understanding of my audience and what context do they have to actually get to where we want to go?
Fantastic. Our final question today, where can my listeners find you and the services that you offer? Is it the ones from your AFN company? Do you have further services that you also offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can get to me on LinkedIn. So Matt Sitter is my name. Sitter, say just like babysitter. That's an easy way to remember it. Also, afn.global is our CEO network. So that's where folks are interested around that. And then the Kinetic Path.com is where I have my executive coaching and leadership development business. And so if someone's interested in executive coaching, if they want to take the leadership network diagnostic and be thinking about how they can do different things with their network, that's where they can reach me as well.
Perfect. Excellent. I'll be putting all of that in the show notes. So in case somebody cannot take any notes at the moment, they all have to do that at the end of the episode. Just click on the links. So thank you so much, Matt, for your time. It was really good to do a little deep dive into the topic networking and good stuff. Thanks a lot. It was very valuable.
Awesome, Juan. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Matt. In the show notes, you will find all the links on where to find him. Before you listen to anything else, I encourage you to pause for a moment, reflect on what was discussed, and choose at least one action point out of this episode and try it out. Feel free to let me know how it went. Your feedback is important to my team and me, so we can continuously improve the value we deliver as we want to give you the most from each episode. Please rate, subscribe, send in your comments, and share with those who you think could profit from this episode. It's very much appreciated and I'm grateful for your messages. I am also a work in progress and strive to do things better every day. This podcast was sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, where we believe that investing in yourself and in your employees is the best investment. Therefore, if you are interested in finding out more about courses and certification programs that were designed for you as a manager to further boost your business excellence initiative, then please go to Courses for Managers tab in the company website www.wave-bef.com. Here you will find interesting courses for you as a leader. On the other hand, if you want to further develop your team members and your high performers so they can all bring even more value by learning new skills and methods for solving process issues, then please select Courses for Employees tab on our website. Here you will find courses designed for your employees to bring more value to the organization. In case you already have team members who are certified in any Lean Six Sigma level, then we also have extra courses for them as well. Thank you, stay tuned, and see you in the next episode of Business Excellence for Managers.